So I will be the first to admit that I'm not the biggest fan of Dave Ramsey.
What was our choice,
Your
Jade?
choice is don't be stupid. That's your choice.
I think that some of his advice can be helpful for people who are just starting out and who are really totally clueless about finance and just drowning in debt. But beyond the very basics, I think that most of his advice is quite out of date and out of touch with our current reality. And worse, a lot of it is just rooted in his religious beliefs as opposed to actual, math, which, in my opinion, is not the best way to approach personal finance.
And I said, I'm going to follow what the Bible says. I'm never borrowing money again, and I've never borrowed money again. I don't borrow money for anything ever, for any reason, under any circumstances.
But he does have one saying that I quite like, which is, if you live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. Basically saying that if right now you're willing to make the sacrifices that a lot of people aren't willing to make, eventually you'll be able to live an amazing life that most people will never be able to live. And in my experience, it's totally true. I was having a little bit of work done on the exterior of my house last week, and one of my neighbors came to take a look at what was being done. And we started talking a little bit. She mentioned that her and her family are probably going to be moving next year, which led to us talking about how expensive housing is, especially in the area that they're looking to move to. And she looks at me kind of out of the middle of nowhere and goes, "Nicole, can I ask you a question if you don't mind?" And usually in my experience, when people say that, they're about to ask you something that they absolutely have no business asking you. But I said, "Sure, I guess. What's up?" And she said, "Do your parents help you financially?" I have to admit that that question kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Not because I think there's anything wrong with getting help from your family if they're willing and able, but just because I don't think it's anybody's business, and especially I don't even really know this person that well. I mean, I can understand where the curiosity comes from. Most of the houses on my street are occupied either by couples who are at least a decade older than me, or by multi-generational families. Being a younger single homeowner kind of makes you an anomaly anywhere nowadays, but especially here in Southern Ontario, where housing is as expensive as it is and generally the cost of living is as high as it is. So I understand that my neighbors probably have questions, or maybe they assume that I'm like a trust fund baby or something. I wish I was. But yeah, the answer is no. I mean, sometimes my mom will call me and be like, "Hey, don't buy onions. I just bought a 10-pound bag on sale, so next time you're here, you can just take half." I don't know if that counts as financial help, but that's pretty much the extent of it. Not that I really feel the need to explain myself to anyone, but I explained to her that I had actually just bought a little townhouse back in 2019 before prices were, they were still high, but not like they are right now. And I lived in that house for a few years, and it went up significantly in value over that time. And I eventually sold it for a big profit, which I rolled into this house. And that's how I got to be where I am today. I fully acknowledge that had that not been the case, there is no way I would be able to afford this place. And I know that I'd be totally screwed if I was a first-time home buyer right now, but thankfully I got in when I did, and here we are. But even that didn't seem to fully satisfy her. It was like she was expecting me to say that my parents actually pay my mortgage for me, or that I won the lottery at some point or something.
Mom, do not screw me over again! If I take that thing to school, everyone's gonna think I'm a poverty-stricken asshole!
But the actual answer is just that I have a good job, and I have no kids, and I can spend my money on whatever I want as a result of that. And I guess that answer isn't as exciting or as dramatic as the stories that people concoct in their heads, but it's the truth. This interaction wasn't the first one I had like it. I've had other people ask what I call fishing questions, where they're basically fishing for information. Things like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" or "What's your family situation like?" But this was the first time I've had someone fully come out and ask me how I afford my home or how I afford my lifestyle. And it kind of irritated me more than I'd like to admit. I don't like the idea of people whispering or gossiping about me behind closed doors. I didn't know that they were. I don't think my life is that mysterious or that exciting, and I certainly don't have this kind of interest in my neighbors' lives. It's none of my business and I don't really care. But all of this got me thinking that although entering the housing market in 2019 was absolutely pivotal to me being where I am today, in order to even get to that point in the first place, I had to do a lot of things that were not normal. And as a result, I now live a life that is not normal, but in a good way. Today, at least here in North America, it is seen as normal to be broke. Recent surveys suggest that as many as 78% of Americans now say they're living paycheck to paycheck, and up to 56% say that they couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency in cash. Here in Canada, things are slightly better, but still pretty bad, with 46% of Canadians saying that they're living paycheck to paycheck, and 26% saying that they couldn't even cover an unexpected $500 expense. Just for funsies, here are some other really scary statistics. The average student loan balance in America is nearly $40,000, but the average income in America is only about $64,000 a year.
Oh, really? That sucks.
Maybe it's just me, but going into $40,000 of debt just to be able to earn $64,000 a year doesn't sound like the greatest idea. The average consumer carries about $6,000 of credit card debt.
I'll use my credit card.
The average car payment is now over $700 a month, and the average phone bill is $141 a month, which is insanity. And there's no good reason for it, because you could be paying as low as $15 a month with today's video partner, Mint Mobile. You know, when it comes to trying to lower your monthly expenses, it can be really difficult. There can be a lot of things that are really difficult to reduce, or things that you could cancel but that you'd really miss. But your phone bill is literally just your phone bill. So why would you want to pay more than you have to when you can get the same service you're used to for way less? Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service with all the same features you're used to, like unlimited talk and text, access to super fast 5G, and mobile hotspot, all from as low as $15 a month, and it only takes 15 minutes to switch over. Best of all is that for a limited time, all of Mint's plans, including their unlimited plan, which is usually $30 a month, is on sale for just $15 a month. But that's not all. New customers who use my link to switch over to Mint by May 31st will also get a 6-month subscription of Paramount Plus Essentials on Mint at no extra cost. So just head over to mintmobile.com/accordingtonicole or click the link in the description box down below to get started. Thank you to Mint Mobile for partnering with me on this video. So by all metrics, you would be totally normal if you're living paycheck to paycheck with no emergency fund, in debt up to your eyeballs, making a mediocre income, and driving a car you can't afford.
How are we gonna get out of here? We'll dig our way out.
And with all that in mind, why would anyone want to be normal? I mean, if that's what normal looks like, then count me out. I am totally fine being a freaking weirdo. It's like, imagine watching an entire lineup of people standing at the edge of a cliff, and the first person takes a running jump, convinced that they can fly, and of course, they fall and splatter and die. And the next person goes, hey, I can do better than that, and takes a running leap and also falls and splatters and dies. And the next person does the same thing with the same results, and the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And now it's your turn. You could decide to shoot your shot and take a chance and see, or you could look over the edge of the cliff, see that pile of dumbasses lying down there, and be like, yeah, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. And your finances are exactly the same. Was that a weird analogy? I feel like that's like the weirdest analogy I could have possibly come up with. Generally speaking, whatever it is that the people around you are doing, that's probably the exact opposite of what you actually should be doing if you want to get ahead financially. Like, if all your friends are broke, and your family is broke, and your coworkers and your neighbors are all broke, why would you possibly think that by doing the same things that they're doing, that you're not going to be broke? Why would you want to do the things that they're doing? By going against the grain a little bit, and taking a moment to question the motives of the things that you're doing before you do them, you can set yourself up to have a fantastic life. By sacrificing the things now that really aren't actually that important, you will ensure that you never have to sacrifice the things that actually are. By driving an older car that I paid for in cash, I save $700 a month because I don't have a car payment. By cooking my own meals at home, I spend roughly $250 a month on groceries as opposed to the $800 to $1,000 that I would otherwise be spending on DoorDash or at restaurants. And that saves me like $550 to $750 a month. By the way, just the savings from those two things alone comes out to more than half of my mortgage payment every month. By not having a bunch of subscription services to things like Netflix or Spotify or Amazon Prime, I save easily another $50 to $100 a month. And because I very rarely drink, and I don't smoke anything, and I don't use any other substances, I save hundreds of dollars a month on that. Not to mention that I stay sharp and focused on my A game in continuing to be able to grow my businesses, which I think is equally important, if not even more so than the money. By using an older generation phone instead of upgrading every 1 to 2 years, I save at least $1,000 a year. And perhaps most controversially, because I didn't go to university, instead of graduating at 22 with $50,000 of debt, I spent that time working, and by 22 I had $50,000 saved up. And that was actually half of the initial down payment on the first home that I bought. And to me, honestly, none of these things feel like sacrifices. My phone works perfectly fine, my car works perfectly fine, I eat healthy, delicious food every single day. I wake up every morning feeling clear-minded and energetic. To me, these are the opposite of sacrifices. On the contrary, having to work overtime just to pay for a stupid car, that would be a huge sacrifice. Going into debt to eat salty, greasy food that makes me feel like absolute crap just because I'm too lazy to go make like a sandwich or a quick stir fry or something, that would be a huge sacrifice. Literally pissing out or setting fire to my hard-earned money while simultaneously poisoning my body, well, that wouldn't even really be a sacrifice, that would just be dumb. But because I've rejected all of these normal expenses from my life, I can now allocate my money to the things that are actually important to me, to the things that I would never want to have to sacrifice. Things like having a safe home that I'm comfortable in and being able to not only pay for it but maintain it as well. Things like being able to buy the groceries that I like without having to scrutinize the price of avocados or whatever. Being able to take care of Levi and all of his needs and not having to get stressed out over a vet bill. Being able to take a day off work if I need to deal with family things, or maybe even just to do fun things, maybe just to go to a concert or whatever, but knowing that taking that day off is not going to cause me to be short on my bills that week. I'm somebody who has always handled stress really poorly. Like, it can fully overwhelm and consume me if I'm not careful. But as I've started to gain some financial stability, I've really come to learn how much that can reduce your stress level. I know that rich people like to say that money doesn't buy happiness, and I suppose that if we're talking about intrinsic happiness, then that's true. But for all of us normal working class people, money can in fact reduce so much stress from our lives and can resolve so many of the problems that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. And to me, that's the next best thing to happiness. I can promise you that no matter who you are and what you value in life, the amount of stress or upset or embarrassment or whatever it is that you might feel by driving an older car or by not having the newest, fanciest phone or whatever it may be is nothing compared to the stress that you will feel when your rent goes up and you can't afford to cover it, or you get older and you can't afford to retire, or someone you care about gets sick and you can't afford to take the time to be with them. But for a lot of people, that's normal. And personally, I don't want to be. I'm very curious to hear what sort of normal things you encounter in day-to-day life that just don't make any sense to you or that you choose to reject from your own life personally. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what those things are and why you feel that way about them. If you enjoyed this video at all, please go ahead and hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so yet. You can follow me on Instagram at according_to_Nicole. Other than that, thank you guys so much as always for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next week.